Having reassembled the frame back in the frame building jig, the next job is to make the bracing the bracing bar that goes at the back of the chainstays. And for that I have a small piece of tube bent like so, and also just another short piece of straight tube, and they basically fit into the machine like that. So I've got to cut the miters on both ends of the bent tube, and then miter the straight tube which goes in there and just forms that Y shape, and braces the chain stays and the axle. So that's the next job to do. So here's the bracing pieces all fitted in now. I've mitered all the points, and it's all fitted in, ready for brazing. But before I braze it, I have to drill a small vent hole in the curved tube, but on the centre of the bracing tube across here. So right, I've drilled the small vent hole, which is here, and now I've just got to assemble it back to frame. That's quite simple. You just put these clamps on. That's that one. And I've put some flux in the inside of this tube, ready to braze it. And that just fits in there. And the clamps just stop it all from moving. So that's ready to braze now. This is the bracing tube now brazed and cleaned up. So now I'm just going to put some brazing flux in these two positions here, and then I'll put the tube in and braze it to the chain stays, and so that sits in there nicely now. That's okay. Right, now just braze this assembly together. I've now just got to give that a light clean up, and then I'll put a fillet of braze round both sides there, and then that's that bit done. And the next operation after that will be to make sure that these three positions are all absolutely in line and all touching the axle casing all at the same point, at the same time. That's quite important, because if it's not, if this one's a bit longer and these are a bit shorter, then it can pull the axle out of line, so I have to make sure that all three are absolutely in line, and that's another operation a little bit after I've done the fillets for there. I've now mitered the bracing tube around the seat chainstays, and the next job is to get all these joints level to the axle. I use a thin feeler. It's only 0.05 or 2/1000 of an inch thick, and basically I just run that in here. Well, that's fairly okay. It's fairly tight. This is a bit loose, and that one's touching the axle there. So I need to relieve these two slightly to try and so that the axle goes in further and closes up the gap in here. It's actually touching a little bit at the bottom. You know, it's quite close at the bottom, but there's a bit gappy at the top. So I just need to adjust that. I use an air grinder for that, and you just slide the axle back out the way, and just grind a little bit at a time. It gets a bit noisy because the compressors will come on. But, well, I think that's probably as good as I'm going to get it. So it's within 2 thou anyway, so that's probably less than that. So we're good to go. So that's ready for brazing. I've already cleaned up the areas that are going to be brazed, and I've put in a vent hole here, so that because these two tubes are blocked off here, so I've put a vent hole in there, so that as the heat builds up in this tube, when I braze it, it can escape through the axle. So that's ready to go now. I'm just going to put some flux inside the tubes. I've already cleaned the tubes inside, so they're clean inside. Right, push that together. And just line this rear loop up with the angle of the chain stays, just by sight, that's fine. And we're ready to start brazing the axle to the frame. Right, now I'm going to braze the centre joint first. cleaned up the brazing I've just done around here now. So the next thing, I'm going to braze this side here. I've released the axle from its locators because it's basically, it's not going to move anywhere now. So I've released it so that it doesn't distort when I put the heat on in various different places. So light the torch again. Now with the 3 stays brazed to the axle, that's all done. I've done a little bit of lining up, and it now all the locators all slide in nicely into the axle, so that's all nicely in line. And it's time to think about putting the seat stays on. Obviously go up from the axle to the top of the seat tube. So that's my next project.